Hi, I'm Remi Harris, and this is Knowing Musicians.
Welcome to Knowing Musicians with me, Rob Burgess. I'm here with Remi Harris. Hi, Remi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so we're at the Beverley or the East Riding Theatre for your show tonight, and we're going to be talking mainly about gypsy jazz and improvisation, things like that.
Yep.
First off, could you tell me a bit about your background and how you started playing as a child? I think it says about 7 years old on your website.
Yeah.
And then how that became gypsy jazz, where that got into that.
Yeah, so I grew up watching my dad play guitar, and so I used to sit at his feet watching him, practicing and stuff in the evenings, right from when I was a little kid. And when I was 4 years old, I had a little toy guitar, which is a plastic thing that we used to tune all the strings to the same note, and I used to play it like that. But then when I got to the age of 7, I got my first real guitar, and so that's when my journey as a player kind of started.
Okay.
And yeah, initially it was, my first song was like a Beatles song. I was learning, 60s, 70s music mostly, which was my dad's record collection basically. Getting into Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and AC/DC and Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac, all that kind of stuff. And then grew up we started getting into bands when we were at school, at high school, a little bit. When was our first band? It may have been in primary school when we started jamming things, but first serious band was like maybe I was, 13 or something like that, 12, 13. I think I did my first gig when I might have been 11 or something, like a little school thing. But then as time went on, the stuff we were doing was like blues rock and like rock music in general. But the thing I always loved the most about playing was jamming and improvising.
Right.
So even though we were playing like heavy blues rock, it was very much a jazz approach as far as I was concerned.
Right.
Like I was improvising. I wasn't learning parts. You learn parts, of course, but my focus was really on being in the moment and playing that's what I love about 60s and 70s blues rock music is because I love all the live versions of everything,
and the freedom.
The freedom, like the 20-minute version of Dazed Confused, like Led Zeppelin, I love that.
Put it on repeat.
Yeah, I love the Journey, the the Allman Brothers live album,
Yeah.
So it was a natural progression for me to kind of start getting interested in jazz music because that's what it's all about. I was working in a guitar shop part-time at the time, and my boss played jazz guitar,
right.
And he gradually started showing me little bits, like, do you know what 251 is? And I was like, no. And he'd explain some of that stuff to me. And I gradually got more and more interested in it until it just kind of took over.
Right.
And then I ended up kind of stopped playing the blues rock for a number of years.
To focus on
the gypsy jazz, and also obviously with the gypsy jazz stuff is the technique and all that stuff involved,
yes.
Which I didn't have. And then gradually over time I started to miss blues guitar, and so I started bringing a bit of that back into what I was doing, and
fusing them together.
And trying to fuse them together, and both. So when I'm playing jazz, I want to bring in blues, and when I'm playing blues, I want to bring in jazz. And just try and blend all my influences into one. And so now these days I do, my gigs are kind of half-half. We do blues rock gigs and then we do jazz gigs.
Amazing. And so that's sort of become your style then. So it's almost as if the genres have disappeared. It's just you're making music.
In my head, yes.
That's
yeah.
really cool.
When you listen to the Hot Club Trio, it's still kind of Hot Club sounding music.
Yeah.
But like I'll put influences from all my rock and blues influences into there and not hold back any of that.
This is amazing because this is the sort of thing I want to get into. So there are so many sort of rules and things with gypsy jazz when you're first starting out, when you see them and it's don't do this, do that, don't play this, don't play that.
Yeah.
And yet when you talk to the players who've been doing it for a long time and who are renowned for making it their own, they've done that through fusing other bits of music with it.
Yeah.
So that's good for learners, means that we can do it too.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Gypsy jazz is a fusion music. I mean, Django for me was the first jazz fusion guitar player because he fused American swing music with his gypsy
With the
traditional music,
stuff, yeah.
and so that's fusion. And so everybody who does that in their own way is following in his tradition, really. You know, I know now it's seen as like a traditional style of music, that you can play it in the way of that 30s, 40s style.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. But for me, it's not about necessarily doing that. I mean, obviously you want to respect the heritage of it all.
Yeah.
And, you know, but also you want to put your own slant on things.
At the moment, I'm focusing on improvising in Gypsy Jazz. Could you tell me a little bit about your approach to improvising? So what's going through your head, what you're thinking when you're doing it, that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. So I think in chord tones when I play.
Okay.
So, you know, every note on the fingerboard is related to the chord I'm on. And obviously scale tones are included in that because like a third is in a chord, but it's also in the scale as well. So you've got all of it, but I think mainly in terms of the actual relationships of the notes to the chords.
And that's your anchor point wherever you are on the fretboard to play around that. Okay.
And I generally think notes it can vary a little bit, but generally I try and think of notes within three contexts. So you've got how it relates to the root key, how it relates to the chord you're on, and also maybe how it relates to the next chord you're going to.
Okay.
Because that leads... So
your mind is in the past, present and future.
in a way.
Yeah,
in a way. Like, you know, if you're say for example in the key of D and you play a B note, like that's the 6th of the D, but it's the 9 of the 5, it's the 5 of the 2, it's the root of the 6, and so it all connects. And so when I'm playing a note, I'm thinking, how's it going to lead me to the next chord? If there's another chord coming up, that is, you know. Yeah. But also how that relates back to the root chord, because if you're playing like a 2-5 or a 4 to a 4 minor back to a 1, all the notes that you're in relation to the 4 chord also relate to the 1 chord, which you're heading towards.
Of course, yeah.
So I try and think of it all as a big web going on.
So it's almost as if it's a big arc going up into the middle of it and then back towards the root chord, and you're trying to weave the way towards it.
You know, so like if you're doing a 2-5-1 in D, you know, you can think this note here is the 5 of the E minor of the 2. It's the 9 of the 5 chord, but also I'm thinking, right, so this note here is the 5 of the 1 chord. So what about if I move it down? It becomes a flat 9 of the 5 chord, and it's taking me back to this one. So there's always a direction with every note that you play.
Yeah.
And that goes and that is how you thread your lines through the chords.
Right, so it's quite theory based then in a way. So you're not just following a melody that's in your head, you're actually thinking, how can I move back to that? And then when you're, I'm guessing, practicing, you're playing around with stuff, experimenting, and then going, no, that doesn't quite work, but that does, and then that'll stay in there.
I mean, it becomes intuitive in a way. It's not like I'm calculating every note, but I'm kind of, I always try, I mean, I'm not saying I can always hold myself to this, but the idea is if someone's there with remote control and they pause me on a note, I can say why I'm playing that note. There's a reason. It's relating to the chord I'm on, it's relating to the chord I'm going to, and it might be related to the home key as well. And
I really like that.
You know what I mean? So that's how I try and picture things. But obviously, as I'm playing, it becomes an intuitive thing, because a lot of this is done in the practice room.
Yes.
When you're actually playing, you're thinking in movements, but you might not be necessarily putting names to every note as they go past. But you know, if you stop me and say, what's that note? I could say, it's the flat 9, the 5, I'm leading it to the 5 of the 1.
In your book, 100 Gypsy Jazz Licks, which is fantastic, thank you, what's really cool about it is that you not only give amazing licks, you break down how you put them together, and then you say, make them your own. Do something like this to the people who's reading it, and make it your own. And that's really encouraging for us, but also it lets us put ourselves out through the music. Is that important to you to do that?
Yeah, every time I learn something from, if I transcribe something, usually I will come up with variations of it. I won't just learn it as it is.
Right.
So I'll come up with 3 or 4 variations and try and learn it as a concept rather than a copy and paste.
Okay.
I mean, we all do the copy and paste thing sometimes. You know, there are certain licks you have down, but ideally when you're improvising, I don't want to be at a thing where you have to like hit a certain note at a certain time within a bar in order for your lick to land in the right place at the end.
Yeah.
It's got to be freer than that. So you take an idea and it's a line, but it's a concept more than it is a line, and you can reshape it into the moment that you're in.
I love that.
And it takes a long time because you have to really digest things. And that's kind of how I treat it. So yeah, so when you learn a lick or an etude or whatever, it's not just about learning it. It's about how can you use that in various different contexts. I think it should be intentional. I do think you should be deliberate in what you play, and not just be. I mean, you know, there's always going to be moments where the wheels fall off,
And stuff comes out.
you know. But the idea is you're deliberate. It's because it's like speaking. You don't just you don't put random words together. You string sentences together, don't you? So it's the same thing.
What advice would you give to learners like myself who are professionals in other areas of guitar and music, but that are crossing over into Gypsy Jazz and want to be able to push themselves a little bit further?
Good question, because it will depend a little bit on where you are along the kind of journey. But I would say focus on the music over the technique, I would say.
Right. Okay. That's cool.
Like technique is a means to an end. You need it to a certain point, but the music comes first.
I love that.
So I wouldn't worry about sitting down doing picking exercises too much, but get it to the point where it serves your playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't feel like you can do everything. That's the other thing. The guitar world is enormous, and you look at it and you see all these amazing players and these different things doing it. You can't do it all. You've got to find what you want to do and decide what that is and focus on that. So whatever that may be, and even within the genre of Gypsy Jazz, there are many different, you know, you've got the more kind of high energy shred stuff, or you've got the more like traditional louder way of playing, which is, you know, you've got various things all in between, and then you can also bring in your own influences. So you got to find out what you want to do with it, really.
You did a really cool Instagram series of videos where you sat down and you're like, right, I keep getting questions about my picking technique or about how I put things together. And I was just getting into Gypsy Jazz when I saw those, and it helped sort of demystify this idea of you must be like this, you must be like... You were like, look, get it to a point, find your own thing, find what's comfortable and work from that.
Yeah.
Could you just explain a little bit about your particular picking technique and how you approach it, how comfortable you are, how loose it is, or if your arm's tight, or if you're in a specific position all the time?
Yeah. So I move up and down the string as I play, which I don't think is probably not a traditional thing to do. I do that when I play blues, and I also flip the pick around for a different tone.
Oh, okay, so we use the round edge.
Use the round edge, and then if I want a bridge pickup Telecaster sound, I go to the point and I just do that like that, and then I'll pick closer to the bridge. So I do things like that which aren't probably traditional to that style of guitar playing. But I do generally play with a rest stroke technique, which is the Gypsy Jazz style picking technique, with the kind of bent wrist. Try and stay as loose as possible, and getting used to those double downstrokes, which takes time. And when I first started playing the Gypsy Jazz style, I didn't do that. Maybe the first 2 years I just carried on with my normal picking technique. And it actually came to a point where I was transcribing some videos on YouTube, and I realised that it would be an advantage to learn it.
Right.
Because the thing I was trying to learn was actually easier if you did the gypsy style picking.
Right.
Because of the way it had worked out on the guitar.
Yeah.
Because before that I was more of an alternate player, I guess. Although I never really thought about picking, but I was basically playing up and down like an alternate.
Yeah.
You know. Having said that, I'm not strict with it, so I will sometimes roll my wrist around and for an upstroke occasionally.
Okay.
A lot of the time it'll be down just like that, but you might see me when I play, occasionally I might just flip the wrist backwards, or I might do like an upward rake or a sweep.
Right.
So there are things that are out of the traditional gypsy style.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So it's a hybrid.
That's cool. Because what I'm finding is, again, there's so many rules and things that say you must do this, but you speak to the higher players. I mean, I saw the interview with Rick Beato and Joshua Stefan.
Yeah.
And Joshua was saying, well, sometimes I put my little finger on the body of the guitar, and he's like, that's not technically what you're supposed to do, just right, but I find it comfortable, so I do it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the rules are there to be broken in a way.
I think so, yeah. I try not to. I have heard those rules, you know, every new string is a downstroke and that kind of thing. And yeah, technically, if you go through a lot of gypsy phrases and hot club style phrases, yeah, you will notice that there are a lot of downstrokes on new strings because you're doing the rest stroke, you're doing the double down.
Yeah.
If you go that direction, you sweep through often.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, it does work out that way a lot of the time, but I never think about it like that.
No.
I never I never apply rules to it.
It wouldn't be a case of you'd stop yourself playing and go, I just noticed that.
No, totally not. And and like I said, technique is a means to an end. So it's all about music first, and then you let the technique serve the music. So that's how I approach it anyway. But
So are there any artists nowadays that are influencing you that are around that we might not have heard of that you could probably recommend?
within the gypsy jazz style?
Yeah, or even maybe within the jazz style or the blues style that you're bringing into your playing.
Yeah, well, a lot of my favourite musicians are from back in the day, you know what I mean? But of the modern, you know, school of gypsy jazz players from the Selma 607 group, you know, all those guys, they had a big influence on me, especially when I was first getting into this style.
Nice.
And those guys were kind of taking influence, obviously from Django and the more older influences, but also Borelli, I think, had a huge influence on those because he has that very contemporary sound.
It's very jazzy and it's very smooth and...
Yeah, lots of like altered scale and stuff like that, or like altered tonality. And so yes, those guys, you know, Selma 607 guys, Gonzalo Biguera and people like that. Particularly when I was getting into that style, I learnt a lot from those. As well as, you know, Angelo De Bar, Stockolo Rosenberg, all the classics, and Django, of course. These days, a lot of my favourite jazz musicians are West Coast American jazz style players.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of often the jazz I listen to the most, actually. So Paul Desmond, Jerry Mulligan, those guys are just like Stan Getz, you know. They're obviously not guitar players, but...
Right. Well, I mean, because this is going to sound so stupid, but until about 3 years ago, I'd never heard of gypsy jazz.
Right.
I grew up never listening to jazz. So all of this stuff is really helping me because I wouldn't know who to listen to, you know, to sort of get that vibe, you know.
Yeah, well, I love West Coast jazz, like the American stuff. It's just music I've always... Well, I mean, I say I've always liked. It reminds me of my granddad's record collection because he used to play it. Now, I wasn't a jazz kind of active jazz fan when I was growing up, when I was that age, but I was hearing it at my granddad's place. And he actually introduced me to Django as well because he was a big Django fan. Nice. But he listened to a lot of, you know, Charlie Parker. He loved Stan Getz, Paul Desmond, and all that kind of era of jazz music. And those, as improvisers, those are the guys I'm drawn to most at the moment.
That's really... I like this. Sorry, I'm just a nerd. I like to find...
No, I'm a nerd as well. That's cool.
You've played incredible shows all over the world in incredible places. Yes, like Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
Like, you know, things like that.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to play some pretty cool places over the years, yeah.
Well, would you consider yourself a master? And if so, why? And if not, why? Are there still things that you're all trying to focus on, still trying to learn, etc.?
Yeah, no, I'm not a master at all. I'm a student.
I love that, yeah.
I'm always trying to learn, always trying to improve. There's always things that I can improve on, new things I can learn, and also things that you forget as well. I often think of like your playing as being like a bookshelf on a wall, and the more books you put on one end, the more they fall off the other end. And so you can't retain everything all at once. So it's a constant cycle. So your musical identity is like transient. It's always moving. And so I'm always adding things and losing things. And
and trying to pick them back
and
up.
then so I do keep like lots of notes because then I can go back 10 years and go, oh yeah, I was working on that, and bring that back. Jesus. And so I'm constantly learning, but it's not like you're ever going to get there.
Yeah.
Because it's always just moving, and so I've got so much to work on, but.
I know that faraway look that was in your eyes. Very much. Everyone I've met who is involved in Gypsy Jazz has been incredibly kind, really welcoming. Is that something you found? The Gypsy Jazz culture is just lovely and kind and nice.
Yeah. There's really good vibes usually. There is a certain amount of competitiveness within certain groups
and areas of it.
Yeah, but you don't have to go there. There's, I'm not big into the kind of gunslinging, competitive showdown thing, but you can walk past that jam and go to the next one. So it's fine, But yeah, generally it's like really good fun.
I saw on your website as well that you do online lessons. How does that come about? What does that involve? Is it like half-hour lessons? Is it an hour? Is it weeknights? Is it just when you're available?
Yeah, I can do well. I'm actually just starting up again now because I had a bit of time off teaching. I'm going to be doing them on Zoom. They can be half an hour. Hour's probably ideal, but half an hour can work as well. As and when everyone's available, basically. Yeah. I usually best time for me is midweek because I'll often be out on the weekends. But I'll be trying to get some lessons in for like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and just. Yeah.
Is there anything that you think I should have asked that you wanted to mention?
I mean, you could talk for hours and hours about all the different things, all the different strings and picks and all that kind of thing. I guess there's something I mentioned to you earlier on, something that's unusual, I guess, to me, is that I use a plain third string. I guess might be worth mentioning.
And that's from the new tone strings?
I use new tone strings,
yes.
Yeah. But I've always used a plain third, and I used to throw away the wound third out of the pack and just replace it. But now I get them made up by new tone. And it's so I can do that because I love Jimi Hendrix, so. And that's the kind of, I think that's something, I'm not aware of other people that do that on this type of style. This guitar at least not maybe to that kind of extent. But I know Django occasionally did do this. Forget which solo it is that he kind of starts like that. But I still want to be able to do this. So that's why I use a plain
Sounds
third.
even better on a Gypsy Jazz guitar.
I love it, yeah. It's got... Especially if you go down by the bridge, you can get that real. So if I can put that within the Gypsy Jazz... just kind of mix it up, really. So that's one of the things I've been doing for years, is that, yeah.
man. I really
pleasure.
appreciate that. Oh, just jammed a Remi Harris. That's insane.